All right, guys, what is going on? And today I am going to start something new for the football season. This is going to be the Sunday Sunbelt wrap up where I talk about all the games that happen in the Sunbelt. You know, I am a Georgia Southern football fan, so I want to talk about the other games that happen in the Sunbelt and basically give you an all around perspective of what's going on in the conference because this is the conference that we play in and it gives us some insight of our opponents throughout the season. So right now, this is going to be the first week. It's still a little bit of rough around the edges. Hopefully, throughout the weeks as they go by, I'll tighten up a little bit on this. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Thursday was the kickoff of the Sun Belt season where Georgia State played Rhode Island, and our former Georgia Southern Eagle Sean Pell-Kisson plays for Rhode Island, and it was a close game up until the end. And there's some controversy behind this game, but nevertheless, Georgia State takes the win, 42-35. The controversy is all about the chain movement on fourth down. Looks like the ref moved the chain back. It was horrible. It was a horrible look, to be honest. But nevertheless, Georgia State does get the win. They beat Rhode Island, like I said, 35-42. My takeaway from this game, I watched a little bit of it. Georgia State is in a lot of trouble. I don't think it's going to be a while for them to get to the point where they can be a formidable team in the Sun Belt. I mean, they struggle with Rhode Island. Rhode Island is not the worst team in the FCS, but they are a step below what the Sun Belt is. And shout out to Sean Pell-Kisson. I do wish he was still an Eagle, but nevertheless, he does play for Rhode Island. They played a pretty good game. The quarterback over there threw for 400 yards. So that tells you what type of team they are, especially for Georgia Southern. When we could throw the ball the way we throw the ball around, we could have some success. Now, the running game with Georgia State, they ran for 184 yards, so they can run the ball. They ran the ball pretty well, and that's somewhat of our Achilles heel so far in this season. So that just goes to show you Georgia State did get the win, 35-42, and 1-0 on the season for them. Now, the next game that we're going to talk about here is Arkansas State goes to Oklahoma. Oh boy, 73-0. I heard that the coach was crying at the end of this game. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I heard. Now, there's not much to talk about here. Arkansas State is probably the worst team in the Sun Belt, and they got blown out. Yeah, is the number 20 opponent. Yeah, it's Oklahoma. Is one of the biggest teams in the country. So you're going to have a situation where this team just going to be overmatched, and that's just what happened. So not much to talk about there. It's just what it is when you think about Oklahoma going up against Arkansas State. The next game we're going to talk about is the South Alabama versus Tulane. I thought this game was going to be a little bit closer. South Alabama was a pretty good team in the Sun Belt last year. Tulane is a formidable team, but nevertheless, I just thought that we were going to be able to hold on, let me get this audio out of here. And I just thought that South Alabama was just going to be a much more formidable team and take it to Tulane. They end up losing by 20. Tulane just goes to show you that they are up and coming team. Shout out to Coach Fritz. Did a phenomenal job with that program. Beat USC last year, and they're just on their way to try to make some things happen once again. The quarterback for Tulane is pretty much is on point. I mean, 294, 4 touchdowns. I mean, what can you say? So that looks really good for Tulane. But the next game we're going to talk about is the Gardner-Webb going up against Appalachian State. Now, this game is a lot closer than it looks. Basically, Appalachian State ran away with this game late. From what I take from this game, Appalachian State is another team that could be in trouble throughout the season. They don't look Appalachian State like. They did struggle a lot in this game. They really, really did. And with that being said, this could be a really big problem for Appalachian State going down, for the rest of the season. It's something that they're just going to have to, work on for the most part. I think that they'll be fine, but you just never know. Like I said, they could turn it around easily, but we'll see. But at the end of the day, it's all about, what they can do on the field. But playing up against Gardner-Webb, like I said, it's a formidable team. Gardner-Webb gave us, a run for our money a couple years ago. So is nothing to sneeze at. They're a pretty good team. I would not be surprised if those guys try to move up at some time because they're playing pretty good ball. But nevertheless, Appalachian State is just, a better team, but they didn't look like it. And Gardner Webb just gave them a run for their money. So the next game, we talked about this on the not on the podcast, but on the show. So it's not much to talk about here. Georgia Southern beat Citadel 34-0. I talked about that in my last video, so you know how that goes. Shout out to Georgia Southern. We did a phenomenal job. Got a little careless in the third quarter, but nevertheless, we did okay. Bucknell versus James Madison, 38-3. James Madison continues to show why they should be in the FBS, why they belong in the Sunbelt, taking care of business early in the season. Bucknell is a FCS team. Didn't have much to hang their hat on when it comes to playing against James Madison. James Madison just basically showed you why they just immediately came one of the top teams in the Sun Belt. Not much to talk about here. The quarterback with only 144 yards passing. I don't know about that too much, but hey, 38-3 is 38-3. Now, the next game, Marshall goes up against University of Albany, and this was a scare. Albany pretty much had this game in hand for the most part. I don't know what happened in this game. Maybe Marshall was not ready, but Albany almost walked away with a victory on this game. Fancher had 268, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Ali, their running back, pretty good running back, 18 carries of 137, 2 touchdowns, and Montgomery had 6 receptions for 81 yards. They need to wake up because they can't play like this for the rest of the season because that's going to be a big problem for them if they decide to, play this way. Hopefully they'll step things up once conference play comes in, but right now that is a big, red flag if they're going to play down to their opponents like that. UL Monroe beats Army, which is actually, this is actually a pretty good win, pretty solid win for UL Monroe. I mean, you got to understand that Army with Jeff Monkkin up there, they have a pretty good team. And with that being, I think Jeff Monkkin is still the coach. But they have a pretty good team, and for them to go and beat, well, they didn't go to Army, but for them to beat Army, that's a pretty good way to start the season for ULM. I'm actually impressed with this. They come back with 2 late touchdowns to win this game, which is really good. So that's a good way to start off the season for ULM, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not necessarily sure how that will fare out for the rest of the season, but that's a good way to start if you want to start off a season. Next game, Texas State gets a Power 5 victory. Texas State is a team that had a lot of turnover for the right reasons. They turn around this team, and this is a team that's going to scare a lot of people in the Sun Belt West. And they just beat Baylor 42-31. And to be honest with you, they look like they was in control of this game for the most part. I watched a good bit of this game earlier in the day prior to our game being played, and they looked like they were in control. And I was thoroughly impressed by the way they played. It's going to be really interesting if they continue that momentum throughout the season. And could they actually be formidable, put Louisiana in a tough spot, put South Alabama in a tough spot in the West? Because, there's some good teams over there, but Texas State is one of these teams. Well, put Troy in a tough spot. They're one of these teams that could be on the rise very fast. Next game, Southern Miss played Alcorn State. And basically, they dominated this game. Pretty good game overall, 40-14. Not much to talk about here. Alcorn State FCS team Southern Miss is showing these guys why they should be in the Sun Belt, showing everybody why they should be in the Sun Belt, and there's nothing wrong with that. Not much to talk about there. If anything, Wiles had 267 with 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, but nothing else stands out. Just pretty much a dominant performance. Troy starts out the season against Stephen F. Austin. 48-30. They gave up a lot of points in this game, which is actually it's pretty interesting. But the talk of this game is Vidal, the running back. He had 25 carries for 248, also 2 receptions for 54 yards. So where this team is going when it comes to their bread and butter on offense. This kid just basically shows Stephen F. Austin like, you got a few more years to step up to where we are. So phenomenal game for him. I mean, what can you say? Over 300 yards of production out of him. I mean, what can you say? Absolutely phenomenal. The defense, give up 30 points. I don't know what to say about that for the most part. But Vidal had a game of his life for what it's worth. Uh, Old Dominion goes and plays Derek Canteen and the Virginia Tech Hokies. And Dominion goes down to Virginia Tech 36-17. Virginia Tech gets some get back from last year. I think Old Dominion beat them last year. So this is a situation where they got some revenge on the game. Not much to talk about it here. G. Wells had 3 touchdowns. And even Wilson only the quarterback ran for 81 yards. So that's really interesting. But for the most part, they just had they doubled up on Old Dominion. Next game we're going to talk about is the Louisiana University of Louisiana. The Raging Cajuns played against Northwestern State, 38-13. They win that game, fairly respectable win. Woolridge had 3 touchdowns on the day, 233 yards. Washington had 88 yards rushing, and LeBlanc had 58 yards and receiving plus a touchdown. So pretty much another game that was pretty it was what it was. Finally, the last game we'll talk about, Coastal Carolina playing UCLA. And Coastal Carolina, these are the Power 5 killers. These guys have been going around beating up on Power 5 teams, but not in this game. They end up losing 13-27. 2 touchdowns late in the game for UCLA seals the deal. And Carson Steele, former Ball State running back, had 13 carries for 76 yards. Grayson McCall had 271 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. And Pinckney had a big game with 9 receptions for 139. So Coastal Carolina did not play too bad against UCLA, but you're going up against a Power 5 opponent, and you are susceptible of losing that game pretty easily if you don't watch. You have to be on your A game for all 4 quarters. In other words, if you're going to play a Power 5 team, you're definitely going to have to score in every quarter and probably score pretty much every possession. And they failed to do that, and UCLA gets the win. So that's pretty much the Sunday Sunbelt Week 1 wrap up. I'm going to be doing this every week. Hopefully you guys will want to check this out. If you like this, comment, hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Trying to get the 1,500. Hell, I'm trying to get the 2,000 subs as soon as possible. So it's all up to you guys. If you guys want to support, it's right there. And I really thank you guys. I will be back on Monday morning with the episode of the podcast. We'll be talking more about game day where Georgia Southern goes play against UAB. UAB comes to Paulson. And the Falcons, they finally played their first game of the season against the Carolina Panthers. So we'll talk about all that. I'm going to get up out of here. Y'all have a good one. Enjoy your Monday, and I'll see you all then. All right, y'all. Peace.